I'm going to do is let you know that we are recording this meeting. So if that's a problem, just be aware that the session is being recorded. So as you know, today's topic is women in hunting. Really excited about this. We have some great people on right now to talk about women in hunting, some of the constraints, some of the programs out there that get over those barriers. So first I want to introduce Marcia Brownlee from the National Wildlife Federation's Artemis Sportswomen. She runs this group that is primarily for getting women into the outdoors, into hunting, into fishing, and into just being sportswomen. So Marcia, do you want to talk a little bit about Artemis and some of your programs?
Yes, I would be happy to. Thank you guys. I'm excited to be here and to have this conversation. And first I want to start by saying it looks like we've got a lot of people representing organizations doing good work on including women. So please speak up and contribute. As you know, I'm only one voice, and so the more we have involved in this conversation, the better work we'll be able to do. So as Kristen mentioned, I am the program manager for Artemis Sportswomen, which is an initiative of the National Wildlife Federation to engage women hunters and anglers. Now I always like at this point to talk a little bit about the sporting background of the National Wildlife Federation and the current work we're doing on that outside of Artemis, because I don't think it's very well known. But when Artemis was, when the National Wildlife Federation was founded in 1936, we were founded by Ding Darling with a primarily sporting focus. We've been a sporting conservation organization from the outset with the purpose of uniting groups into a powerful voice, encouraging governments to invest in America's wildlife. So that was the origin of our group. And we are a true federation, which is something I didn't fully understand until I began working for the Federation. And what that means is that we have state affiliates, and those are independent, local, nonprofit organizations across the country working on state-level conservation issues. And all of those affiliates come together annually to set NWF policies and resolutions to govern the conservation work that we do. 29 of those affiliates are what we call hook and bullet affiliates. So those are organizations whose conservation voice is predominantly a sporting voice. And recently, the National Wildlife Federation has made moves to amplify the visibility of our sporting work on a national level. And those efforts include Artemis. It also includes ECHO, which is Hispanics Enjoying Camping, Hunting, and the Outdoors. And to show the work that we're doing, they've created a platform to speak directly to our sporting members through NWF Outdoors. And that platform can be found at nwf.org/outdoors. And then they've done some internal restructuring to include a director of sporting advocacy to make sure that hunting and fishing voice is present in all conservation throughout the National Wildlife Federation. And so with that foundation, one of the programs that they are putting a lot of energy and resources into is Artemis. We were launched in 2017, primarily in the West, just to get our feet under us and figure out what this organization looks like and how it can be successful. In February of this year, we expanded nationally, and so now it's really exciting that we have over 40 volunteer ambassadors in over 18 states with the sole purpose of creating community and connecting with sportswomen on the ground to develop those relationships and develop those co-learning opportunities. So some of the programming that we do, we have a podcast. Artemis podcast can be found wherever you get your podcasts. And interestingly, today's episode that was released was on reactivation. It was a great conversation with a sportswoman who started hunting 20 years ago in Florida and just kind of traces her journey in the winding road of on again, off again hunting and sort of the reasons behind that. So if you have a chance, please take a listen to it. We do a lot of work building women's confidence in their hunting abilities, and most of our programming aims at two different things. One is to really give them the confidence to get out in the woods themselves, because I think when women are able to take their hunting experience from the passenger seat to the driver's seat, that's when you really see rises in retention. And then secondly is to amplify the voice and visibility of sportswomen in the national sporting conversation, because there again, I think when women are included in that national conversation a little bit more, not only do we have the opportunity to do more recruiting, but we also are able to stay at the forefront of sportswomen's minds. So when they have an off year where they aren't able to hunt, the opportunity to come back is a little bit more present. And I think I'll stop there for an introduction.
Great, thank you. And I see that we have some other organizations that definitely have women-focused programs. We've got Women in the Outdoors from NWTS. The Mule Deer Foundation has their DOES program. RBFF has Women Making Waves. Some of the agencies I know have Becoming Outdoors Woman. And I'm sure there's a bunch more out there that I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but if you are dialed in and you want to talk about your program, go ahead and let me know in the chat box, and I'll give you a break to chat. So it looks like we've got some good answers over here to our question. Feeling accepted, yeah. So if you do have one of those women's programs that focuses on some of these, and you want to answer some of these questions or address some of these concerns about how to support women in the hunting community, go ahead and just give it a speak. You can let me know that you're going to talk, or you can raise your hand or start speaking, and I will stop speaking. Let's see, we've got, how about Ellen from Kentucky? I think you've worked with the BOW program in Kentucky. Can you talk a little bit about that? Maybe? Okay. So let's just start addressing some of these. Oh, Teresa Carroll. Go ahead and speak, Teresa. Teresa, if you're not dialed in, we can't hear you. So Ellen, if you're dialed in, you can go ahead and speak. I see you're saying that you do have BOW. Maybe? No? Okay, Ellen, go ahead and dial in, and we'll get to you in just a minute. So some of these answers are really good. The first one reads, feeling accepted, it isn't usually known that women hunt too. I like the idea of more women mentors. So that's really interesting because it's actually been researched where women learn differently than men. So having female mentors that can address some of the concerns with fellow women, that has been really powerful. And kind of where that dichotomy breaks down is that women want to know how to do everything. They want to know how the firearm breaks down, how to put it back together, what to do if it jams, all before they even go and shoot. Whereas men tend to want to just try it and figure it out for themselves. And so that's where sometimes a Learn to Hunt program or just a general hunting or target shooting program can be difficult to meet needs of both of those learning styles. So that's something you might consider if you are thinking of running a women's program, or if you're mentoring women or teaching other women how to mentor, or teaching men how to mentor. Help men understand these different learning styles so that they can be great mentors for women too. And it sounds like we got a couple of people dialed in. So Ellen, maybe? I'm not sure that you heard any of that. That's always exciting. Julia, are you dialed in? You want to talk about Nebraska BOW? Or Monica in Texas?
This is Monica in Texas. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Hey, Monica. Do you want to give us a rundown
Hi.
of what you guys do?
Hey, yeah, just real quick. I've been with the agency 7 years, and in those 7 years, I've partnered with the Army Corps of Engineers at a couple of our lakes, and we offer annually mentored deer hunts for BOW ladies. So at the BOW workshop that takes place closest to the hunts, we draw the names of 5 ladies and an alternate, and basically set up the situation where they come to deer camp on Saturday. They meet their mentors, who are my certified hunter education instructors. I've gotten to the point now where I have some of the ladies that came to early mentored hunts are now coming back and mentoring or helping at camp by cooking or doing whatever it takes. But we start the day on Saturday meeting, do the introductions, do a safety briefing, go to the range where the ladies become familiar with the 20-gauge shotguns that I provide. And they have the opportunity of doing a bow hunt using archery equipment. So we go get familiar with the equipment, come back, get prepared to go out, and the Corps has already set up, done the scouting, has the blinds set up, has been doing the feeding, and then we go out, ladies sit in the blind, hopefully are successful, come back to camp. We do everything that is involved in the field dressing and processing, and the next morning, Sunday morning, they get to go out again, and I usually have them out of there by 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday. But it's been a great event. We tried to add a turkey hunt this year. Unfortunately, things didn't work out in that respect. We've done a hog hunt in the past in some other locations, but really popular program here in Texas.
Awesome. Thank you. Ellen, looks like you're dialed in. It might have been your phone that made that noise. As long as your computer speakers are muted, you should be able to talk through your phone and be able to hear through your phone just fine. So if you want to give that a shot, go for it.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, how are you? I'm sorry.
Good. How are you, Ellen?
That was probably I'm good. So do you want me to just tell you a few of the workshops that we offer during BOW?
Yeah, sure. And if you know how some of those were developed based on needs or what you find from the women that you work with, anything like that would be great.
Okay. Well, I was asked to be an instructor at BOW about 4 years ago because I'm both a hunter's ed instructor and a bow hunter's ed instructor. And I developed the coursework throughout the years. Basically, we learned to hunt, and I gave them an overview of what animals in the state, what they could with firearm, and all the choices, ground blinds, elevated hunting. I think the next year was the year we started with bow hunting specifically, and then from there moved to advanced bow hunting, where we taught them how to set up a blind, the safety gear that you would use to hunt elk, and then we would go through some strategize and things of that nature. I know 3 or 4 years ago we offered a class where there was an instructor that showed us how to butcher a deer without gutting it, and the ladies were very interested in that. That well received. It was fascinating, I think, for them because I am a woman who hunts, and I was able to answer all their questions that they weren't really comfortable asking, or they felt like somebody would think it would be a sin. We've also done beyond bow, where they were archery related. I'm ready to do a beyond bow, actually virtually, since we can't meet in person, where I'm going to discuss different practice techniques where you can get your bow hunting game at its best before this, things of that nature. It's all been very well received, and the ladies are really excited. A lot I got was that they were encouraged. I'm older. I'm 50 years old. And so when they see a lady, especially, but a lady out there hunting, a lot of people say, well, if she can do it, I can do it. And granted, I have my husbands and sons and things like that, but I give them the things that I've made mistakes, and I give them how I solved it so that they can start out mistakes and have more success early on. And the secret behind those seminars is just helping them avoid the pitfalls most newbies experience when they go out into the field.
Yeah, definitely, and filling some of those gaps too. Julia, I see that you are dialed in. If you want to give it a go.
Sure. So Nebraska offers, very similar Becoming an Outdoor Woman program as a lot of the states do across the nation. We're pretty strong as long as the program has been nationally together. Nebraska's had the program. Over the recent years, we've done some evaluations to determine how or what the ladies are looking for. 5 years ago, we would say that we were starting to move away from the hunting and shooting sports perspective because we thought that would gain the interest of the women to come. But once they got there, they weren't the audience that they weren't exactly the audience that we were hoping to get. So from our evaluation efforts, we decided to really focus almost completely the weekend event that we have every fall, heavy focus on hunting and shooting sports. That in return has changed some of the participation in our weekends, where the women that are coming now, that's what they want to be there for. They know that's on the agenda. That's what they're coming for. They're not exactly coming for more of the natural stuff and then don't want to do the other activities. And so we found that out through evaluations. Now, through our Beyond BOW efforts, we're teaming with WEDO and with Michaela Rea, our R3 coordinator in Nebraska. Nebraska is creating pathways. So once the ladies have participated in that beginning level, either at our weekend or to Beyond, we're giving them this flyer, we're giving them the information to what they need to do next. What programs will provide them the guidance and the education to continue down the pathway. So, once they're past that novice, that introductory level, now they'll participate in a series-long archery series program at one of the parks, or a month-long series on shooting. Then we had them set up for Learn to Hunt, and then we have mentor hunts scheduled for that. We had what we thought very well laid out Learn to Turkey Hunt pathway set up, but given the circumstances that we've kind of run into, we've had to change the way that we're doing. We're trying to implement different ways of mentoring the ladies that have went through these pathways who want to turkey hunt, maybe by like a Zoom mentored hunt where they're in a blind. I could go on and on. We're definitely looking into different ways of keeping these ladies engaged. Now that we're fearful that we're not going to be able to get them together in a bit large setting this fall. So we're bringing our minds together, and how can we keep them engaged? How can we get them still started? A lot of creative thinking that we're trying to look forward to. So that's it. I could probably go on and on, but I don't want to take up the whole call.
Great, thanks, Julia.
Yeah.
Teresa, it looks like you have your microphone on, and I just wanted to kind of interject to say this is something that Ellen and Julia both touched on, but I've spoken to a couple of people that lead some of these bow and women on the wing and those type of workshops, and they say that they have the same women coming back over and over again. So really what they are looking for is not necessarily the learning part anymore, but more of the social support part. So I kind of wonder about any of these programs that have like follow-up workshops or outings or things like that for women who have gone through these programs and really just want to get back together with their friends. And Teresa, I think we might have spoken about this at the North American some, but I don't want to take away from you. So go ahead and talk about what you got to say.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can.
Sure. Sorry about that earlier. Yeah,
Sorry.
so I'm with NWTF and our Women in the Outdoors program, which started in 1997. And we have about, I would say, 18,000 members that participate in our Women in the Outdoors program. We started out with various round-robin type events where a lady would come to a full-day event and try different things like shotgunning, archery, kayaking, those type of things. I think initially our program was never really designed on the onset to recruit a hunter. But as archery came into light and we began to understand that hunters were declining, we worked really hard with our chapters to put more of an emphasis on teaching ladies, getting them interested in hunting and providing events that would lead them to say a 101 on hunting to see if that's something that they wanted to pursue further. Our events have transitioned to more hunts, and when I say hunts, they're mentored hunts. So we're looking for ladies who are either novice hunters or know nothing. And when we advertise those, at least at headquarters in Edgefield, South Carolina, where I'm from, we'll get ladies call all the time and say, now I've never even shot a gun. And we always say that's okay. You're the type of person that we want to participate in this event. So one of the ways that we have been able to keep ladies engaged, and it's really the ball is in their court to stay engaged, is we have tried to do events that continue. Say we do a turkey 101 and a turkey hunt. We also will have a dove 101 and a dove hunt, and then a deer 101 and a deer hunt, so that they have multiple opportunities to try hunting different game. We have found that successful in some respects with folks that have started out with hunter education and then followed up with those particular hunts and now are at a mentor level. We don't see that in the volume we would like, but that has been successful. But that's what we're doing, in a nutshell.
That's awesome. And you said something that I want to touch on a little bit more, and that's other game species, right? So we talk about recruitment a lot, and women being recruited, but once we get them recruited, how do we keep them there? So we know that women are the fastest growing segment of licensed buyers, but we also know that women tend to lapse a lot more than men. So one thing we can talk about is how do we keep women in the field? How do we keep that retention? And one of the ways we can do that is by introducing hunts for other species. And so that's kind of an interesting concept that you touched on there, Teresa. So thanks for that. And then I wanted to give Jessica a chance to talk about does. That's one that I'm less familiar with through the Mule Deer Foundation. So Jessica, if you are on, go for it.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, good. So New Mexico Department of Game and Fish, I'm the shooting program coordinator. When several years ago we did an R3 symposium and brought all these NGOs to the table, and I left there going, there's a huge segment missing. There wasn't any women organizations or groups that were talking about events for women, and so we had a BOW in New Mexico. It became very much like Girl Scout camp. There was the same people going year after year. You had to get on a waiting list. It wasn't ran well. Nothing against BOW. It was just this particular program, and so it ended. And so when I started exploring women's programs, we talked extensively with BOW, and we wanted to do beyond BOW. We wanted to do a fork-to-table kind of experience, and I had brought together several ladies who, throughout the state, who were involved in NGOs, hunting, and whatnot, and the Mule Deer Foundation was one of those that came to the table. Colleen Payne is the regional director here in New Mexico, and she was super excited, and she goes, Mule Deer wants to be your partner. We want to do this. And so she came up with DOES, which we all love, and it's Discover the Outdoors and Encourage Sportsmanship. And so our goal was really to do a field to fork experience, no experience required. We have found that working with a group of women, it's not the same as working with a group of kids. We have to have more flexibility in the schedule. Nicer accommodations always goes a long way, and I'm not to say that women are prima donnas, but when you are introducing somebody new to the sport, sleeping in a tent with the wind blowing 120 miles an hour through the night is not exciting, and it doesn't make them want to come back. So if you can make those accommodations a little higher class than you maybe would have for a group of kids or men, I think it's a lot easier for women to go, oh yeah, this was fun. I liked it. I want to do it again. We did a turkey hunt, and we had some hellacious wind, and we all put up the tents, and it was an interesting experience, to say the least. Our fishing events were a lot more successful. We did those at an outfitter's lodge, and everybody had a private room, or they shared a room with their friend, and we had a beautiful lodge with a big dining table and a deck, and they loved it, and they wanted to come back, and they always, are like, this was great, when's the next event? And our goal really was to always be introducing new people and not having that return. And so I think that's the hardest part, is having that next step for those people who want to continue. One of the things that we started doing was hunter education camps for ladies only. And actually, I say ladies only. We did ladies camps, and we offered it to 13 and up, and we had a couple dads that brought their 13-year-old daughters, and it was great. And the dads were, I think, more appreciative of us having a ladies event than some of the moms were. They were just thrilled that we were doing something for their daughters. So and then we've taken people that have gone through our ladies hunter ed classes and taken them hunting. So we're trying to build that stepping stone. I think we were really going to hit the ground running here in 2020, and Corona. So that's been a challenge right now, so, for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I was planning on becoming a bow instructor in Kentucky actually this year, and then Corona hit, and now I'm not really sure what's going to happen with that. So I think we're all in flux to that end. Michelle asked the question, wondering if anyone has done research interviews with Black women. And Michelle, we do have some research about that. I think, Samantha, do you have a link for that you may have already shared or could share in the chat box? Michelle, I know that you're highly invested in this topic, so if you want to chat about it, go ahead and call in. But until then, Justin also had a question. He said, has anyone had success scaling these programs? We've had great success with 20 to 30 participants at a time, but that's not moving the needle. Justin, I'm interested to find out why you don't think that's moving the needle. 20 to 30 participants is kind of huge. And think about it, I like to think about mentoring as like a pyramid scheme of sorts. So if you've ever been part of like Avon or Amway or any of those things where, you know, you buy in and then you sell and then you convince all your friends to sell for you, and it's kind of like trickle-down economics, right? So right now we're talking about trickle-down hunting. So 20 to 30 people coming, you know, if you can get them to a place where they're all comfortable enough to mentor, that's going to be 2 or 3 people per person that they can then mentor. And especially if they're women, they may be inclined to mentor other women or other people that are in their space that might not have the opportunity otherwise. So Justin, if you want to either call in and talk about that, or if you can give me some extra details in the chat box about why you don't think that you're moving the needle with 20 to 30 people at an event, that would be great. But as for the other part of your question, scalability, that's a great question, and that's something that we ask with a lot of these programs. How can we make this bridge across the states, across the country, across the counties, maybe? And I think that the BOW system, Becoming an Outdoors Woman, because that's run by agencies, I think they've done a really good job of keeping that kind of consistent across the state. So maybe, is that what you're talking about, scalability, or what are your goals for scalability as far as that goes? And I see, Michelle, that you're on now, so if you want to talk a little bit about retention of women and women lapsing, that would be great.
Well, it was more of a question around the research and having to do with, I mean, if we really want to get to the heart of the gender issues, then do we ever ask questions about, you know, how much is how you were treated, you know, by men, or, you know, whether it be mentors or out hunting or whatever, where, you know, I just dropped out because I don't have the energy to, you know, kind of fight whatever assumptions people are making about me. So that's kind of where I was going with it. If there's actual like interviews where we're getting more than just our sort of predisposed answers. Like I lapsed because,
sure.
you know what I mean?
So, yeah, so maybe, are you looking for not necessarily just like a general survey, but maybe more like a focus group where we could
Yeah,
really
I was thinking
in?
if anybody's actually had, you know, interview more, yeah, like it could be a focus group, I suppose, or actually just a skilled interviewer.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not personally aware of anything like that, but go ahead.
There's a great article that Marcia shared a link to about the Understanding Hunting Constraints and Negotiation Strategies, a typology of female hunters. This report's new to me, in fact, and I'm just looking here, and it looks like there's some content in there that could really help from that perspective of, you know, their experiences and then how they overcame them. Yeah, this is Marcia. I just wanted to jump in there. That is a great article, and it's from Libby Metcalf out of the University of Montana. And one of the things that I like about it is she addresses pretty point blank that part of the problem is the way that women are addressing leisure time and the way that we're prioritizing our leisure time and how we make choices with the consideration of the rest of our responsibilities and obligations. But Michelle, circling back to what you had mentioned, you know, I think that's a huge point, and it's one that I've come across in talking to women over and over again. It's, you know, part of the dynamic that women bring into an environment where they're learning to hunt is like we bring our own stuff with us. one of the Artemis co-founders likes to say we're all just little social experiments. So when we come into an environment, we're bringing ourselves to it in a very particular way, and how people show up when they're the only woman or one of a handful of women in a group of men is different than how they may show up in a number of different environments. And I think it doesn't, we can do everything we can to make those environments feel comfortable. And we are doing everything we can to make those environments feel comfortable. But a lot of it is what people bring of themselves to that situation, and that we have very little influence on. And so for me, I think the goal then is to just create a variety of different opportunities where people can walk into and just kind of explore what self they're bringing to that situation and how comfortable they are.
Yeah, that's great. Michelle, did that answer some of your questions? Yes, okay, perfect. So kind of along that same vein of retention and lapse, I want to hear from Julia again. You say that you are overcoming the bow repeats. I want to hear about how you do that, because a lot of our lapse may be coming from people or women who they really enjoy their first experience in a program like bow, and then if you keep them from coming back because they've already been through it, how do you keep them engaged with hunting and more along their path of becoming a sportswoman? So Julia, take it away.
Sure. It kind of goes back to the discussion, kind of goes back to our evaluation. So when we evaluated the ladies that were attending our main weekend event, we were finding out that they were coming to that weekend just because of the leisure time. They were using it more as a vacation. So it kind of came to our set that they weren't really using, our goal of the BOW weekend was to get them to move farther on the dial. Well, that wasn't their intentions. Their intentions were to come to the weekend for a vacation. So using that evaluation efforts, we started to really kind of hammer down on who could participate in a way. And I mean, it's still causing some grief, but we said, okay, we changed our marketing efforts. We focused more on, okay, we're going to be focusing on hunting, we're going to be focusing on shooting and fishing. And the past participants were not able to register for, let's say, 3 months after registration actually opened to the newbies. And so the new participants were able to jump in. Now what we're finding from those new participants, because they came in more of the idea of why they're coming to learn the skill that we're presenting and not just for a vacation. Those participants now are, because they're there for it, they're wanting to learn more on that particular skill, and we're finding that now they want to come back for more or beyonds, or they want to do those pathways, and so we're seeing them participate in more of the beyond events moving forward. We also pick up participants not just at that main weekend, but the beyond events. They may only have time to go and participate in some skilled activities on a particular interest. For example, they may not be able to get away for an entire weekend, but they will they will reserve that time and their interest to learn how to turkey hunt. Or one example is squirrel hunt. We did a lady squirrel hunt this winter. We had some participants come that had never hunted before. They've seen that small game as a easy interest to get in. Now we had a lady come in without basically she only had a little knowledge of the skill to hunt, but never had hunted. After that point, she got that taste of hunting. This young lady now is reaching out on social media on our BOW Facebook platform and asking for people to go hunting with her. And so, it kind of goes back to that conversation of ladies creating those social groups. I'm seeing even on like our Facebook pages, maybe on Instagram, that ladies are reaching out trying to build social groups themselves, which is awesome, because maybe that their group of friends is not necessarily wanting to go hunting with them, so they're wanting to find women that do have those same interests to go out with them. So that's just some things that we're seeing here in Nebraska.
Great, thanks, Julia. And
Yeah.
Christina, it looks like you have a way built in avoiding repeats at Weekend Deer Camp here in New Jersey. So if you're on, go ahead and tell us about it. Maybe not. Okay, Christina. Oh, Christina, is that you? Maybe? Okay, we're going to move on to Marcia. I think you had something you wanted to add there too. So Christina, if you pop on, just follow up after Marcia. But Marcia, go ahead.
Yeah, really quickly. I think I can't remember who was just speaking, but I think what you said was spot on. A lot of my understanding of the repeats is because there is difficulty of women finding a community outside of these more formal situations. I think there's this gap between finishing a mentored hunt and finding a community of people that you can go hunting with socially. And obviously there should be no expectation on the mentor to then welcome the new hunter into their hunt camp and that social community, but women are having a hard time developing that and identifying it for themselves. And so I think that's why they keep coming back to these organized programs, because that community is there for them. And I agree, you see these social media fostered Facebook groups that are super local of women connecting online, and then a lot of times those relationships then transition offline and into the field. And so I think it's highlighting the necessity to really emphasize building those communities outside of programs.
Yeah, that's a good point. And Christina, it looks like you're on now, so if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can, yeah.
I feel like I'm in a commercial. So real quick, just to touch on a lot of the things that have already been said. When we set out through the NWTF Women in the Outdoors program to create a weekend event to build on our mentored hunts, because we found we just weren't getting that, we weren't getting the women to stay. They would come to the one-day event, and then, it would be like they'd check out, they wouldn't get involved. So I thought if we could do a weekend-long event, it's a much different experience. I went through it. It's what got me started in doing mentored hunts for others. So I sat down with some of our New Jersey Division of Fish and Wildlife employees, and their biggest advice to me was, don't do what we did with our bow weekends, because it ended up becoming a club where it was just, again, the same women coming back and forth every year. So we set out, and last year was our first year. Hopefully we get to do it this year. We set out from the very beginning saying, this is a beginner mentored weekend hunt. The first year we opened it up to 16 participants. This year, if you participated last year, you can come back as a mentor, but you cannot register as a participant because we want new people who need that experience. And, my biggest speech that I give to these new hunters is you can have no experience and you can come into this program and you can attend this weekend, and next year, whether you harvested a deer this year, you can be a mentor because you know what it feels like to sit in that ground blind. Now, we're not going to have every single mentor be a first-year mentor. That's just not, safe to do. But that's how we're avoiding it, because literally, if we did that, we would have the exact same 16 attendees last year, this year. And what we have found is that from that weekend experience, all of these women have since gone on to other events, whether they be NWTF or Ducks Unlimited or New Jersey Division of Fish and Wildlife, or, I mean, we've had, I kind of spread nationwide information to them. I've had women interested in going down to Tennessee and Wyoming, and they're just finding whatever hunting experience they can find, and they're teaming up together to do it. And it's kind of incredible. So I really think, invite them and include them, because that was the biggest takeaway from the weekend that we did, was they want to stay included. So from literally the day after, we sent out a thing saying, thank you so much for participating, come back as a mentor, and be involved in the planning of it. So it's definitely something to think about, even in your non-mentored hunt, just regular events.
Yeah, definitely. So you touched on a couple things there that I think could be fun to elaborate on. And one of them is bringing them back as a mentor. And I tried to do that in the state program that I ran, and what I found a lot of people saying was, oh, I don't know enough to mentor. Well, we really need to do a better job, I think, of explaining that mentoring doesn't have to be from ground zero to 100%. Mentoring can be helping you shop for clothing that will work for you. It can be talking about, the best placement of the projectile on the animal. It can be digital scouting. It can be real life scouting. I mean, there's so many things that mentoring can encompass. It can be just talking about your experience. And I think we need to do a better job as kind of a hunting community about letting people know that they're not expected to be a full 100% mentor. So that's kind of a fun rant I like to get on, but I'll get off my soapbox now. Justin, if you're still on, I see that you're called in. If you want to talk a little bit about what you meant by trying to move the needle.
Yeah, I'm here, and it won't take long. I just, what I meant by we're not moving the needle is that I can sit and look at our dashboard and tell you that whatever we're doing is losing ground. And, we stopped doing BOW in Missouri a few years back because we found it just became that vacation weekend for the group of girls or for the group of ladies. And we were having a hard time. We did some surveys, and we just had a really hard time converting it. So we decided that at some point it just becomes an issue of where do we devote our resources? And we're lucky that we have quite a few outdoor skills employees in the field, but we could do the programs on a smaller scale, and we do, and we have several programs devoted to first-time lady hunters throughout the state every year. But whatever we're doing is still not working because our dashboard continues to tell us that.
That's interesting.
They're feel-good programs. Makes us feel good, and we can pat ourselves on the back, and we can put out press releases, and we can tell administration that we're doing great things. But when you look at the data, it's just not there. And I'd be interested to know if other states are seeing upticks, year to year, or trending in their dashboard data.
Yeah. So I like that you're using dashboard data. That's awesome. Do you have a structure in place for collecting data about those participants, like pre and post workshop surveys, follow-up surveys, that kind of ask them why they're trying to get into hunting, how they found the program, and if they followed up and bought a license? Are you tracking any of that?
On some level, yes. We do a lot of surveying. We've got a Human Dimensions crew that does a lot of surveys for us, and so we can get their feedback, and we can get how likely they are to go next year. Unfortunately, we've got a lot of divisions and a lot of folks fighting for those human resources people for their time and attention. So we're not always able to get the survey data that we want when we want it. But
I see. Okay.
yeah, we have the capability, and we do that on some level. I was just talking about the dashboard data being just purely number of permits sold, and looking at the percentage of those that are women, the percentage, you can break that down by all different demographics.
Yeah, and that goes back definitely to our conversation that we started about churn rate of women. And Samantha, it looks like you have something you want to chime in with?
Yeah, I wanted to just offer the idea that, programs, from Justin's point, programs are resource intensive. And since we have so many programs on the landscape, so many great partners at the table, what can we do on the retention side? What can we do on the reactivation side? Because if we have demonstrated successful entry-level programs that build up skills and ability, and we get them out there for the first time, and a lot of the research we're showing documents that they have challenges staying active and that they churn right after. So can we shift and channel some of our support to the retention? Because if people continue to keep the recruitment programs there, if other partners can chime in and participate on the retention side, we might be able to address that challenge that Justin and a lot of others have identified, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense for us, and what we're trying to do is be better about funneling those participants to partner events and to follow up with our own events that are more of a moderate level instead of a beginner level. We're trying to do better about funneling those participants, but it's still, like you said, it's resource intensive.
I think this is Marcia. Is it okay if I speak on this for just a second?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think, yes, as somebody who puts together programming, it is so resource intensive. And I think it's an interesting thought because in my mind, when we switch the conversation from recruitment to retention, we're switching the solutions from programmatic to systemic. And so what we need for retention is really for women to start taking the reins of their own learning. And programs can only take that so far. And so I feel like when you have women who come back to these as sort of this club that continues to return to this particular environment, which is wonderful that they're staying engaged in that way, but it's almost treating it as I don't want to sound dismissive, and please don't take it that way, but treating it like a summer camp, right? Like this is a little vacation retreat that they take with their friends to spend time in the woods, and that's fantastic, but it's still not them incorporating it into their lifestyle and taking Hunter on as an identity and grabbing the reins of their own learning experience as a hunter in the field. And I don't know that there's a programmatic solution to that question. I think it needs to be a community-based solution about how we support them outside of programs. So I'm just raising more issues.
Well, that's a really good point, Marcia. Oh, go ahead,
Justin. This is Justin again, and I absolutely agree with that. The problem is, at least in our organization, in our agency, it's programmatic based, so it's kind of changing the whole culture of how we do our outreach and education.
Well, I think yes, and I think the programs can stay as long as they move people along. And so is there a tier 2 programming for people who are engaged to free up more room to continue to recruit new hunters? So I don't know that you need to reassess what you're already doing, because it sounds amazing and successful. It may just be giving a step 2 for people who've quote unquote graduated from it to engage in.
Yeah, good follow-up there, Marcia. Definitely having support beyond programs, I think that's where it's at with retention. I mean, obviously programs are great, and if you can provide something like Beyond Bow, that's awesome. But the reality is we don't all have the capacity to do another program. So how can we find alternatives and creating these social groups. And I think one of the ways we do that is just encouraging women to go out together. And even if they're new, you know, we can figure it out kind of thing, especially if we have a friend. And that kind of feeds into this question that Ellen just asked on the board. She said, do folks find that women are more willing to hunt smaller game on their own and large game like deer or elk less likely because they're unable to drag heavy game and process it? I definitely understand that question. I have been hunting for a few years now. I'm definitely an adult onset hunter, but I just recently got to the point where I'm comfortable hunting deer by myself. And even then, you know, I'm not going to take a monster buck because I know that I can't do anything with it by myself and I'll need help. So if you have experience with this, you know, or you run programs based on just small game hunting, or you see a difference in women doing small game versus large game, tell us about it.
So I can speak up, Kristen. I've been a hunter since I was 11 years old. This is Samantha talking from the council. And I only started recently going hunting by myself, probably like in the last 5 to 6 years. My eyes look westward to try to get out there and hunt out there, but the idea of me going solo in another state where I can't, you know, I don't know all the ropes is very intimidating. And so I've done programs. I mean, just to be transparent, I went to the first program that Artemis put on in Western hunting, and I drove out and tried to figure it out because having a program that was catering to women in the West gave me a skill set that allowed me to expand. It covered different topics than I would experience in the East. And so for me, that was a retention thing probably. But again, if you know me, I'm also a really avid hunter. So the concept of going on my own was something I had to figure out. And as I've talked to all my friends and lady hunters across the nation now, that seems to be the need is that they'll go locally once they have their resources found and identified, and it's a safe environment that they're going out in. But to expand that range and get to the level of capability, you know, of our counterparts, it takes a lot of effort. And so it's been really intriguing to me just to kind of figure that out personally and then look to the research and others' experiences to document that too.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. Going out on your own can definitely be a safety issue also. And I think women are more wary about that than men are. Personally, I hesitate to hunt on public land unless I know it really well by myself. Otherwise, I want to take somebody with me who knows the land a little bit better and, you know, knows where they can get cell service and stuff if anything happens. And out west, gosh, I can't even imagine trying to coordinate all of that. So that's an interesting point you bring up, Samantha. And we are nearing the end of our time here. This has been a great discussion, and there's about 100 more rabbit holes that I would love to go down with all of you. But if anybody has any kind of last comments or questions, go ahead and put them in the box. We'll try to get to them. But I want to just let everybody know that the Artemis podcast just put out an episode about hunting while pregnant, and that is definitely something that is unique to women. So, Marcia, if you want to tell us a little bit about what you guys covered on that podcast, that would be great.
Yeah, so the Hunting While Pregnant podcast, we covered a number of different things. Of course, we covered, you know, questions that women had about shooting, whether it's from the recoil from the sound and what impact that may or may not have on the child. We covered diseases that people should be aware of when handling carcasses. So that's kind of the serious stuff that we covered. And then there was also, you know, we covered how to be easy with yourself because your energy may be low. We covered the necessity of snacks. We covered the interesting things having a baby does to your bowel movements and how to be prepared for that in the field. You know, we really ran the gamut. We covered maternity hunting gear, or the lack thereof, and brainstormed ways to troubleshoot it. It was a super fun podcast with two of our ambassadors who actually one of them had her baby on Mother's Day, which was really special. But I encourage you to check it out. It's a conversation about hunting that you don't hear very often.
Yeah, and I'll get a link for that posted up when I post the recording. So as always, this recording will be available in the next 24 hours on the R3 community. So you can go back, so you can share it, so you can, you know, do whatever you need to do with it. Show it to some of your coworkers who are working on mentoring. This should be a really good resource. And it looks like Samantha actually just shared. Samantha, what did you just share there? I can't tell from the link, sorry.
That's okay. We've referenced a bunch of different articles, and so what I'm doing is just grabbing all of them again and posting them in one place, so if people want the links, they can get it. I'm also going to post the link to the R3 handbook. I saw a lot of requests for research. This is a digital copy of that handbook. Control F Women. You will find a lot of content in there. So you should have the the study by Libby Metcalf. You should have the shooting sports industry article posted today, the R3 handbook, and then if there's any other links on research on this topic, go ahead and share them so we can kind of create a resource for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. And then Julia also added the She Goes Outdoors podcast. That's a really good one. I've listened to a couple of those. All of these resources are great. Keep adding them. Again, this will be on the R3 community, so if you have more resources you want to add, definitely comment on that post so that everybody can see them. And I just want to thank everybody for being here today. This has been a super fun discussion. Again, there's so much more that we could talk about.